I'm Andy.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jack.
And together we're working on restoring our sailing yacht.
Some of you might think we're crazy taking on the challenge of restoring this boat and creating a life less ordinary.
And we're sure there will be blood, sweat and tears, but it'll all be worth it when we embark on our epic adventure around the world.
It's time to have another look in the locker at the front at what actually needs doing. So let's have another peek. It's been several months now since we disassembled that, but I want to try and tackle it before the bad weather in the winter starts to set in. Okay, so that looks pretty horrendous, doesn't it? Now, let's have a look at the actual area that's going to need cutting out. Right up at the top, by the bow, right up at the very top corner, that is not going to need doing. That's absolutely fine. I'm perfectly happy with that. So as we come down, here is where the corrosion starts. Right, just here is where the corrosion proper starts. And it goes down and past here. This here is the shackle for the chain. And then just below that it's actually okay, but then a bit further down there's a little bit more. You're probably wondering why I'm going about the whole business of the anchor locker now when I've still got welding to do at the back end. Well, I've now got a kind of system in place for these patches at the back end. I've got a very clear idea in my head of what I'm doing. I know what patches need replacing, and I've got an idea in my head of how long they're going to take to do. And also, because they're underneath the boat, I can kind of do them when it's less than perfect conditions. Here at the chain locker, we've still got water getting into the boat. It's now September 2021, so I'm keen to get all the holes where water can get in, rainwater can get in over winter. I want to get them all plugged up before the winter comes. It always fascinates me how little loss of steel you get with what appears to be a lot of scale and corrosion. As I'm new to metalworking, or relatively new to this kind of metalworking, and there's a lot of scale on this chain plate. This is the chain plate for the bobstay that I've just taken off, and when I measure it, it's still measuring 8 mil. It's not actually lost that much. I'm still going to cut it out and change it because I want to put a new chain plate in, but this is the bit that I'm talking about from the inside, and the patch of serious corrosion that I can see is about that big. So we've got the big patches up higher up, but then this patch is only about that size. I'm going to go inside with a drill and a drill bit, and I'm going to drill a series of holes from the inside around the area that's really badly corroded, because then I can visualize where that is on the outside. Before I cut out any of the anchor chain locker, I want to remove that bowsprit and the little step at the front, because that's all going to have to be refabricated. 56 centimetres to the point of the nose, 105 centimetres to the front of the box. That's from the centre, the hole centre on the furthest back hole. So yeah, from the hole centre on the furthest aft position on that chain plate, we are 560 mil to the point of the nose here, but if that ends up getting cut off as well, which I don't think it will, it's 105 centimetres, 1050 mil to the front of the box where the anchor windlass sits. I've just cut off the end of the old bowsprit flush, and I'm going to shine the camera down inside there so that you can see down, you can have a look for me. I'm not not sure how much you can see there because it's pretty dark, but I'll try and brighten that in post and see what the quality of the inside of that tube's like. So the plan is, if that looks okay in there, is to get a piece of thick walled tube down the inside of that, weld it round, Bob's your uncle. Looks okay to me. So I've got my line of holes drilled where the pieces that I've got to cut out, and I've marked them all up with the Sharpie just roughly, and it's just a case now of joining up the dots, and as you can see there's nice curves to the whole thing, so there'll be no sharp corners.
Unfortunately cutting out a bit more of the front of the boat because we were a little bit optimistic when we cut the bit piece out yesterday. Going to show you what I've been doing while Andy's been doing that. I've just come and helped him clean up a lot more of this. So this is the inside of the chain locker. There's still a bit that's going to be cut out there, but everything else looks pretty good. Just aside from this side, sun's in my eyes. I have been obviously I've sanded the top sides, but what I've been doing is going round terracoing, terraco, whatever it's called, the bits that are rusty. I'll just show you some of those. I've just been cleaning up along the top sides. I've not gone mad around that window because that window's getting cut out and Jack's new window's going in there, and the same on the port side. I'm working my way along the top sides, just tidying up the rust. What I'm going to do, the places that have gone through, I'm going to paint with some red oxide so Andy knows that's where we need to cut out, and then the other places I'm going to give a coat of paint, and then once they're all done, then we'll paint the whole of the top sides in primer.
So I've got my patch cut, and now it's the ridiculously tricky bit of getting it to fit perfectly. That's my new hole, and what I've done is I've welded in a piece in the bottom corner and a piece up there and a piece up there. They're sacrificial, they'll get cut back out. So those pieces will get cut back out afterwards. They are so that when we offer the piece up to the hull, it doesn't just fall inside. And then to hold it in place, I've just cut some pieces of scrap, which I'm just going to tack onto the plate like so that we can hold it in place, offer it up, move it around. It's not constantly trying to fall in or fall out. So I'm just going to tack these bits of scrap steel to the outside as handles to make it easier to move about, and then we can start the long, tedious process of trimming this and fettling it to make it fit perfectly, unless by some fluke I've got it right first time, which I doubt. We'll have somebody telling us we should have a hard hat, really. Probably should have a hard hat, really. I'm stopping for this evening because it's now too late in the evening and the pub across the road will lynch me if I carry on. The bottom is welded in place, the top's welded in place, and that bit down the side, we actually need to close that gap that way. It's not that the panel doesn't fit, panel fits great, but it needs to be pinched up, so I've got to make a tool tomorrow to do that. Now, I'm going to do something very risky. I'm going to do a rate my weld. So bear in mind, this will all be welded as well from the inside, and if I need to, I can grind these back and do them again. And if I really need to, I'll grind them back and pay a proper welder to do it. But here's the bottom bit. So there, I kept going offline, but it is continuous. But that is the bottom weld. As you can see, I'm not quite so good at welding verticals as I am horizontals, but that's okay. I'm reasonably happy with that. Certainly watertight. Let's have a look at the one at the top. God, this is a risky thing to do. Who puts their welds on YouTube for everyone to see? Especially, that was awkward. Here's the top one, right? I haven't ground these back. I've not done anything like silly. That is, and look, it's stacked coins, stacked coins, stacked coins. I'm reasonably pleased with that. I'm very certain it's strong, and I'm very certain it's watertight, and it'll be welded from the inside anyway. So even if it's not the best weld in the world from the outside, by the time it's welded from the inside as well, that is going to be absolutely fine. Got to go and buy more steel tomorrow as well. So it's the next morning, and I've made these little tools out of a G-clamp and a bit of angle iron so that I can weld it to here and wind the G-clamp in, and it will enable me to squeeze that gap shut, I hope. There's a patch here that I'm going to cut out, but I'm going to do that as a separate patch. But the principle with these G-clamps is that I can gradually tighten them up. Look.
Can you not use that template on this side bit?
Maybe. We'll see.
That's nice. If you could use that as a template on this side, you could.
Maybe. This is where, because I'm holding the camera, it'll ping off in my face because I've not got two hands to do the job. That's flush. Yeah, that's lovely.
Let me check. I reckon it's in a bit too much there.
Maybe. Wind it out a tiny fraction. Happy?
Not completely.
There you go. That's better.
So we're just getting this side ready to cut out.
I've drilled my line of holes again to mark from the inside all around the bad corrosion. It's a slightly different shape to the other side, which is going to bug me because I really wanted the two shapes on the two sides to be identical, but it's not going to happen. You're never going to see them once it's painted over, but it's just my own, I don't know.
Kind of looks like a butterfly wing on this side.
It does, and again, you can see this hole here. There's corrosion in this area here, but I'm not going to make a stupid shape out of this, so I'm going to take that area out later. I'm just going to get this big patch in and then that one coming off on the side, because otherwise it's just silly and complicated and it's far too difficult to line up. So one thing I did off camera, couldn't show you because it was inside the anchor locker, but I put this entire vertical all the way up and down as far as I can go, as big as I could get in the hole sort of thing, to keep the shape of the nose. The original design didn't have this, but I like the idea. It was actually Reese from SV Zora that said to do it, and I completely agree. I've had to notch it here, obviously, because there's a weld bead that I needed to go over the top of. But it's a perfect straight line all the way up the nose, which I'm really delighted about. And now with this huge hole here, I can actually weld that in place to the new steel all the way down, and I can get to any of the other bits that I missed. I'm just so pleased with how this is going. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to start drawing round the piece that I've cut out, because it's come out in such a beautiful piece that I can probably use it as a template, and it should fit perfectly back in. Melissa, in the meantime, is going to...
I'm going to clean up round, get all the filler off and stuff around where we're going to weld.
Yeah.
And start prepping the...
Something to point out, a lot of people have commented on how thick the fairing is on this, but the epoxy fairing that you can see on the boat is actually original. So it's lasted 40 years. So whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, and me personally, if I was building a boat from scratch, I wouldn't do it. I'd leave the fairing off, and I'd like a more honest hull that you can see what's going on. But whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, it's lasted 40 years, so it's pretty darn good. Either way, we're not going to blast it all off, because it would just be a vast undertaking.
Maybe something that we do in the future in a
Yes.
different country.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for now it's staying.
If when we get to some hot sunny country we decide to shot blast the entire hull, yeah, I probably would not refair the boat. Anyway,
Let's get to work.
cutting out that piece of steel, cleaning up the metal.
One problem I always have is the flipping goggles misting up, and I've tried those combination things with a mask and goggles in one. I can't get on with them, they're just awful. So if anybody's got any suggestions for a product for a goggles that don't mix up.
Here's our panel again. So yet again, it's the extremely difficult job of getting it into position. Well, we've got to stop again because we've run out of welding wire and it's too late in the day again. More tomorrow, but Stephen and I are going to nip home to the house and fetch some more welding wire, and we'll finish this tomorrow. And tomorrow should see the bow of our boat completely closed up.
Woohoo!
There will be 2 more patches. As I keep saying, this patch here is going to have to go where the where that stringer is, and that's gone. So I'll cut that bit out, and the same the other side. But that will be the last 2 patches in the front of the boat. I'm thrilled. Down tools and back tomorrow morning. Yeah, so see you after this. The first thing I've got to do is make some dogs and wedges so that we can tweak that piece of metal back into place. Okay, so there are lots of different ways of tweaking bits of metal to match each other. Obviously you have to get your gap between your 2 pieces of metal correct, but where you've got one piece of metal which is just standing proud of the other one and you want to push it down or pull it up, there are lots of different ways of doing it, but the way I've been doing it is I made these yesterday, which are a little G-clamp, so you can weld that piece of angle to the one side and then use the G-clamp to push the other side down. And the other way of doing it is with a dog and a wedge. This is a dog and this is a wedge. I don't have any proper ones, so I've just knocked these up. That's a bit of 10mm flat bar and that's a bit of 6mm. So you would weld that onto the one side and then hammer the wedge in underneath, and as you hammer that down it forces the other piece flat, and you can just keep tapping it until the 2 pieces, you know, line up exactly how you want them.
So what Andy's doing right now is just grinding off the bits that I've said, no, that's not flush. And the reason I can be out here is because we've got Andy's son Stephen on the inside on Firewatch, which is really handy. But the nice thing is, because it's in the anchor locker, there's a metal bulkhead in between the anchor locker and the forepeak. I'm fine, Jack. So Jack wanted to watch this momentous occasion where the nose gets sealed up. So while Andy's over there closing the nose up, I just wanted to come over here. You can see him in the background, just to say how proud I am of him doing this. I'm really proud. The nose of the boat has caused us lots of stress and worries, just because it's a bit of a tricky thing and it's a really important part of the boat. I'm just really proud of him for cracking on and doing it and working so hard. And I know to a lot of you it's just a man welding a boat, but what he's doing is working hard so we can go off and spend more time together as a family and, you know, live our dreams basically. And I appreciate that. He very often comes home from a 12-hour night shift straight to the boat for a couple of hours sleep and then cracks on with his work. So thank you.
So that's the end of yet another episode of Sailing Melody. The whole of the front end of the boat is all sheeted in. We've done it all.
We have a new chin.
There are 2 patches left to do, one on this side just there and one on the other side. For now I've just weld filled those holes to stop the rain coming in, but I will be cutting them out. But the top sides and those patches are now ready to paint, so I wonder if you can guess what's happening in next week's episode. For now though, thank you very much for watching and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye. Remember, you can now buy my solo album Determination. Just send us an email to turner.andy@hotmail.com and we'll get the digital download out directly to you for $11 UK or $15 US. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome aboard first to our new patrons, Mike and Caroline Colling. Thank you to our anonymous supporter for the ridiculously huge gift. We were totally blown away. And thanks also to our patrons, supporters and everyone who's helped us through Coffee, PayPal and our Amazon wish list.